Hi peeps, it's Tersse back on the old squat box once again, and I didn't think I would ever discover this, but I've just discovered something from a Sam Harris lecture, which actually, people might disagree with me, but I think actually substantiates my last 5 videos. The fact that, we do have free will. We are able, even with our indoctrination within our societies and within our, be it a religious belief or just a cultural thing, we are indoctrinated. We're indoctrinated by the law, the society, the culture we live in, and I explained and I mentioned that in my last 5 videos. But now here I have Sam Harris actually expressing the same thing as he talks about, Buddhism and meditation. And he says exactly what I was saying. You can actually change your mental state through the will of your mind. Now, he says you have to do it, or it's possible to do it, or he knows evidence of it being done by, the Dalai Lama and other Eastern Buddhists and stuff, which scientists in the West are now collating with and making sense of. And here he is talking about it, and yet Sam Harris is one of the most forthright proponents of there is no self-will, no free will. And yet here he is saying there is free will. You can actually educate yourself, condition yourself to see the world in a different way from what you would normally have if you were brought up in a Western nation. But if you learn a little bit about transcendental meditation or study Buddhism, it's possible you might be able to change your mind, and it's one of the things I did. I got into transcendental meditation when I was 16, 17, 18, when about there. And I did it for years, and so I actually do believe in free will because I do have free will. I've conditioned myself to have free will. This is what and here he is, Sam Harris, expressing free will, even though he now says that there's no free will. As long as you fucking...
That is not the Eastern, and especially it is not the Buddhist view. I mean, in Eastern schools of meditation, they have discovered that there is an alternative to being lost in thought, moment by moment. In the West, the testimony on this subject is really thin. I mean, in the West, we have been standing on the shoulders of dwarves, in contemplative terms. So I just want to briefly sketch for you what I think our contemplative traditions attest to. And this is something that is actually getting a lot of scientific interest at this point. As you probably know, there are meetings between the Dalai Lama and Western neuroscientists. I just came from one in DC, and this was devoted specifically to the clinical applications of meditation. But there is dialogue between Western scientists generally and contemplatives about how first-person data, first-person experience can be brought into the charm circle of third-person experiment, and how we can use this to understand the possibilities of human well-being a little bit better. So briefly, the first fruit of this dialogue really is the insight that positive human emotions, positive human traits, are skills. They are trainable. I mean, just as you can learn to play the piano, you can learn to feel compassion for somebody when you otherwise wouldn't. You can learn to feel joy at the success of another person rather than envy. And you can learn this because our brains are really plastic. Our brains are instruments that change based on how they are played. It's really quite magical that this is so, but it it certainly seems to be so. Who knows to what degree our experience can change the brain and therefore change the possibilities of future experience. But we know that it does. And therefore, what you think matters. What you feel matters. The kinds of intentions you form toward other people matters. Whether you act ethically matters. And what you pay attention to, moment to moment, what you notice matters. And it even just matters for health. We know that stress is so corrosive of physical health now. We know that even if meditation did nothing other than reduce stress, it would be worth looking into. And we know that the brain is intimately linked with it, obviously the autonomic nervous system, but the endocrine system, the immune system. These systems are affected by your conscious emotional life and in turn affect the brain, its physical structure. But there's a deeper message from our contemplative traditions beyond that we can change our minds. The message is that there's something beyond the search for pleasure and pain. There's something beyond joy and sorrow and just the vicissitudes of human experience. And what is beyond is not some distant paradise. It is simply consciousness itself. There is this insight that consciousness, that very thing that is aware of your experience in this moment, the very thing that is hearing the sound of my voice, that is feeling the sensation of your body sitting there, that transcends its content in some basic sense. That which is aware of joy, for instance, and that which is aware of sorrow, is not actually improved by joy or diminished by sorrow. And what meditation is a way of just turning consciousness upon itself to try to glimpse this fact and to glimpse the way it feels. Because it doesn't feel like a self. It doesn't feel like I. We all walk around feeling like we are the thinker of our thoughts and the experiencer of our experience. We feel like we are having experience. We're not merely identical to our experience. And this point of view is really vulnerable to inquiry. I mean, if this seems just impossibly abstract, by analogy, I just want to point out to you, maybe I can tie it down to something that we all know is so. We all know we have an optic blind spot. We all know that the optic nerve passes through the retina, and so there's a point in our visual fields where we're not getting any information. We've all probably had this demonstration done in class where you do a mark on a piece of paper and you play with it and you get the mark to disappear. Now, so it is true of you now. There's, as you look out across the room, there's somebody very likely missing a head, and you're not noticing it. It's falling in your blind spot. It is possible to be made to notice this. Most people don't notice it. Even those of us who know about it go for decades without noticing it. And yet it is there available to be noticed. There is an analogous insight into the nature of consciousness that is just as on the surface as that. It tends to be harder to notice. I mean, it requires most people some training in meditation to notice it. But it is possible to notice that consciousness, that in you which is aware of your experience, does not feel like I.